Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Hello, hello, everybody. It's the second episode. NFT mental art. So let's see if someone is joining, tweeting the space. Here we go. Hello, hello. Let's just wait for a couple of minutes. Let's see if Kristina joins in. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if I can make her a co-host. Let's see. It's the second time I'm hosting a Twitter space. Okay.
Hey Marta, how
Oh,
you doing?
hi. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you all right.
Hi, hello. Apparently, I'm connected with the No Pasa Nada account as well, but we're not.
Okay, I don't see that one.
Yeah, exactly, because I'm from the desktop, so yeah, I have no idea what's happening anyways. Um,
Yes,
okay.
desktop doesn't really work well with Twitter Spaces, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, but it's like the only way I can have to record
Yeah,
the space actually. So it's very weird. And as you see, there's not lots of people here, but like it's a tool to record for the podcast. So then it goes
yeah,
there, and someone pops up, then we can take questions. So first of all, like thank you so much for being here, and accepting this invite, especially the format is really, really young, so it's only second episode. So thank you so much.
yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here.
All right, all right. Christina, so first of all, I, as you know, so we're talking NFTs and mental health, and two words that are really interesting to me. I've been working with mental health for the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years now, together with psychologists and also interviewing people that are not really professionals in the space, but that
Mm.
have totally different jobs. And but of course, like mental health is something that concerns all of us. So I have the first question for you that I have is, what is mental health for you? Which is the question we always ask to each and every guest we have, and how you do take care of it daily.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I think for me, so my mental health journey is, I won't say it's atypical because I only like to speak on my own behalf. I know everyone's got their own journey. But essentially, so I've been in psychiatric care since the age of 12, regarding mental health, dominantly sort of beginning in my early years from related to anxiety and depression. And then that manifested into eating disorders, as well as so bulimia, and obsessive compulsive disorder, separation anxiety, all that kind of lovely stuff. And then later on in life was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 35, which isn't uncommon for particularly women that are ADHD. So I look at that from a
Yeah,
couple.
I heard diagnosis sometimes really happens when you're like in your 30s or 40s with the ADHD. I didn't know about this.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the data is really showing that it typically happens that late in life with young women, because of the fact that it tends to be that ADHD does not show up in the same way with young girls, the same way as it does as young boys. And a lot of the research has been done with young boys. So while a young girl might be exhibiting many signs, they don't show up as a stereotypical young boy who, as we know, ADHD looks like, your hyper young boy classroom in the corner that's not able to sit down and isn't able to focus, where that's not necessarily the case with young girls. It definitely wasn't the case with me. I was a highly anxious, a very quiet and shy young girl. And so that wasn't, something that was even considered, despite the fact that I was in psychiatric care since I was 12 years old. A lot of women too also don't get diagnosed until they themselves, like their kids, perhaps their young boys, get diagnosed. And so I think it's something that has a lot of opportunity in the future to change now that we know about these things. But yes, it's definitely for my generation, sort of born in the 80s. It's a very typical story that I hear coming out of many folks.
Yeah, and do you think like the narrative around mental health is shifting like for good? Because like for us millennials, like we really have seen, I would say, the last years of this big stigma, which exists. I mean, it still does exist, but I think we're a little bit better off right now. What do you say? Maybe also because of the internet. I don't know.
I mean, I think it depends on who you talk to, quite frankly, which is always the case with all these kinds of things. It depends on where you go in the world. It depends on a number of different factors like culture and ethnicities. Many of them regard mental health very differently, and the stigmas are very different depending on where you're going in the world and socioeconomic status, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of data to support that, and so I think for me, I often speak about my privilege as it relates to mental health because while I was, a 12-year-old with suicidal ideation, I also was a 12-year-old that was born in Canada, which means that I had access to mental health resources. And I also was born to two parents that, despite stigma, they sought help. They sought professional help for me. And so, I think a lot of people, a lot of millennials would say that they grew up in an environment that was very much so focused on mental health related to the stigma of it, whereas I was not. I had parents that were willing to seek help and support for me, despite the fact that I'm sure they weren't necessarily broadcasting that to the folks around them, but they still were able to get help. So, do I think that it's better? I think my experience of it and who I surround myself with, I would say that it's better than I've traditionally seen it in the past. I think the fact that we are having this conversation right now is incredibly important. I think the resources that I see going behind mental health in Canada, we have something, I think it's January 26th, but one of our big telecom companies do a campaign called Bell Let's Talk, and they surround that around the idea of normalizing conversations around mental health. And there's a charitable component. Every sort of social media interaction results in a donation on their part, but they've done a really, really great job over the years to normalize those conversations and normalize just folks speaking about their mental health journey. So I would say from my personal perspective, yes, it seems to be getting better. But I would also know there's probably people in my life that would say that based on the folks that they surround themselves with, that stigma is still very real and is a big constraint in their day to day life.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. It surely depends on your, I would say, also community somehow, and of course, which socioeconomic background and condition you have, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, yeah, we
Totally.
we could talk for weeks about this. So I'm gonna move to the other, let's say, side of the conversation, which is NFTs. You're super big into NFTs. So, can you give us an overview on how you got started with your NFT journey, and how where are you right now?
Yeah, sure. So I've had a bit of an atypical career in general. I've sort of floated around to a number of different things. I started my career in professional sports working for an NBA team, and then I moved on to social impact and philanthropy, working for some private philanthropic donors, and then kind of found my space in that world of social impact. Decided to be an entrepreneur and built a
What were
social
you
impact.
working in, Kristina, for the Raptors? Which right? Was it the
Yeah,
Raptors, right? Yeah.
yes,
Which
correct.
what were you doing? Were you working
Yeah,
in?
so my job was kind of, I worked for player and community relations. So basically, what that meant is that I was sort of the conduit between the business operations, which there many people don't realize, but there is a lot of, and the basketball operations. So I grew up playing basketball. I played in college or university, as we call it in Canada. And so my role was really anytime the business needed anything from the team, whether that was, marketing or consumer products or ticketing or sales or suites, whatever it was, they would come to me and my department. And then we would like sort of filter all those requests and do the strategy around what were the best things to actually execute on, and then actually manage the execution from the player's perspective. And that's really kind of how I fell in love with the social impact side of things, because the idea of working with the players directly to say, at the time we didn't have any Canadian players on the team. I still don't know if they do. Excuse me. And so saying, Kyle Lowry came and was traded from Houston. He went to school and grew up in Philadelphia, went to Villanova University or college. And so saying, you've done all these things in Houston, you've done all these things in Philadelphia to make sure that you've got an impact on the community there. What do you want to do in Toronto? What are you passionate about? What do you care about? And how do we create those linkages for you in the Toronto? And nice thing about the Raptors is that there's no other NBA teams in Canada. So you really are, your fans are nationwide, like an entire
That's cool.
country, which is really cool. So what can we do across the entire country for you to make sure that regardless of if you're here for a year or if you're here for, I don't know how many end up being there, maybe like 7 or 8 years. I forget what the final number was. But you leave a legacy, and you leave a mark in that country, but also in that city. So that was the part that I kind of was most excited about. All that to say, started a tech company. After that, a social impact data company. I bootstrapped that for close to 4 years, and then COVID hit in March of 2020, and by June 2020, just being that we were selling directly to nonprofits, we just weren't sure what was going to happen. We didn't know that what was going to look like in order to sell, and be able to create sustainable revenue from our perspective. And so we decided to shut our doors, which was incredibly difficult. You talk about mental health. It was an extremely difficult time of my life, because that was, my baby and everything I had put
And for
into
many
it.
people too. So
Oh
like
yeah.
it was like my psychologist says, my therapist says, it's like a global trauma, and
Oh yes.
it's
I that resonates. Yes, that hits
so
very,
like it's
very
like we
hard.
all gonna have PTSD somehow, which is not comforting, but well, we
Hmm.
need to know it. Like we need to know that it's gonna happen sometime
Yeah,
for each one
and
of
I
us.
think exactly, and I think just the fact that we can be aware of that, the fact that we can acknowledge that at some point in our life, unfortunately, the reality of the human condition is that the suffering is a part of it, and it happens in very different ways for many different people, and so that was certainly a time of suffering in my life. I'm very quick to always compare myself to other folks and say, there are a lot of people in the world suffering much greater hardships than myself, but I've also done the work to try to recognize the fact that, one person's challenges and hardships don't negate another's. My feelings are totally valid, and the emotions I was feeling at that
Especially
time.
let's say today, which apparently is Blue Monday, but Blue Monday is doesn't actually exist, and sometimes feelings like sadness or anger, or even depression, or like forms of difficult moments with mental health are not as valid as today, which to me is honestly nonsense. So yeah, Blue Monday is not a thing, but still, if you're feeling sad or anything, like it's valid, like everything is valid. So
Yeah, I wouldn't even pretend to know the least bit about Blue Monday. I think somebody that experiences and has experienced depression, anxiety my whole life, I can count many Mondays that were not so great for me, depending. It didn't matter if they were in the summer or in the winter, given that I live in a multi-climate country. Example, this morning I took my toddler to daycare on a sled because the snow is so high. We weren't able to go outside all weekend because it was so cold. So, yes, absolutely. Times in the year shifts and change in my own mental health just based on realities of the climate that I live in. But yeah, I'll be honest, I don't remember what direction we were going or taking that, but
Yeah, no, for your NFT story, that's where we that's
yes,
how you
yes,
began to
yes.
tell me. Yeah.
So tech founder, failed tech founder. I like to acknowledge the fact that it was a failure, not in totality, because there's a lot of lessons learned and there's a lot of positives that I took from it. But reality was that in a traditional business sense and in a technology sense, for sure, related to entrepreneurialism, I failed. And so I had to do a lot of work around that. But one beautiful thing I like to talk about with my ADHD and the fact that I believe it's a superpower is there hasn't been many moments in my life where I have experienced one thing and was struck so strongly by it that I wasn't able to let it go. Hyperfocus is a real thing with ADHD, and I've experienced it in its like in minutia along my day to day. Every single day I'm experiencing it, but for those that know me, the way that I describe how I felt when I found NFTs was it was the exact same way I felt when I found basketball when I was 12 years old and I did my first layup. It was like I was obsessed from every single bit of it. I had been sort of listening. I have followed Gary Vee for a very long time because of the fact that I'm an entrepreneur and appreciate a lot of the ways that he looks at things. And so when I listened to a podcast that he was on with Kevin Rose, who's a venture capitalist, I just kind of saw throughout my atypical career, all the journeys I had taken, I saw so many of the applicable use cases to NFTs and it kind of all clicked. And from there, I started collecting. I just started learning. I became obsessed and was
When
spending
was it? When was it?
May 2020.
Wow.
May 2020
Okay.
or May 2021? Let me see. May
Okay.
no, May 2021. May 2021.
Okay.
Because June
Okay.
2020 my company failed. Yes. So May 2021, this past May. Not that long, but long in the NFT space.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of long. Like for me, at least, I was actually lurking somehow, listening to Gary Vee and studying, projects. And I have a couple of friends that one of them is actually pretty successful in the NFT space. He's an artist, always been an artist and an innovator. But I was like, I didn't really like. I think I started like for real like a month and a half ago, like 2 months ago, not more. So yeah, I'm even younger than you in the space. So there's lots to
Yeah, it's all
learn. There's
relative.
lots to learn.
Yeah, and when I
Yeah,
got into this space, it was like, oh my God, people have been here so long. But like realistically, as I found out, those
yeah,
people got there in like January of 2021,
yeah,
and I was May. So it's all relative. You listen to anyone speak, and it can feel like they've been here 100 years longer, but like it could be that they got here 3 weeks before you because
yeah,
the learning
yeah.
is so rapid.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we're like sharing and creating spaces, etc., etc. So NFTs, as you said, so many use cases. I'm actually into. So I'm studying for my sommelier exam, and I'm seeing lots of potential use cases for wine, which is totally unrelated to what we see right now in the let's say not the whole NFT space, but like the use case that most stood out in terms of sector and industry, I would say, of course, is art. I mean, the platforms, like every NFT
Hmm.
project right now has an art component to it. See Taco, hi. We're gonna have Taco with us in a week or so. Yeah, so art, like, has your relationship with art evolved somehow via NFTs? Has it changed? I mean, I'm not, so I don't like this question so much in terms of if we're listening to this space, like in 10 years from now, we're going to say, oh my God, like they were thinking only about art and NFTs. But for people that will listen to this episode of the podcast in 10 years, you know, right now in 2022 and 2021 as well, like people were buying NFTs for art mainly. So I mean, let's
Totally.
give it context. So has it evolved somehow?
Yeah, so I'll say two things on that, and the first is just like I thank God for art and for NFTs because it's been able to take a very complex both technology but also conceptually. If you look at the technology of blockchain, the involvement of currency and cryptocurrency, which most people are not familiar with, the application to art is actually what's been able to allow that technology to go mainstream, even though like art is is not really what this is all about at the end of the day. That said, it does create a really beautiful foundation to what we're seeing as sort of this community economy, which is allowing folks that previously would never have been able to make a living or would have never considered being creative or being an artist as a career has allowed them to do so and hopefully gain the financial freedom that so many of us are looking for from that opportunity. So I would say, like, thank God for that. And that's going to be sort of the first particular use case that then allows the rest of the technology and the rest of the use cases to really take off. Um, how has it changed my relationship to art? I think I grew up as a very creative kid. I was always really into drawing and doodling and painting and sculpting and all that kind of stuff. But I was definitely one of those kids that was never a consideration for me to be an artist because it just wasn't. Like, as a millennial, I think my parents were incredibly supportive, but I don't even think it was them or their influence that never made me think like that. I think it was just like larger socialization of most people just never thought that they would be a professional artist. It, for me anyways, it was just like that was perhaps a side hobby that I would do on the side if I was lucky, and quite frankly, it wasn't something that I continued doing because I just didn't have the bandwidth and didn't have the time. So for me, it's sort of been like a reigniting of something that's always been inside me and something that's really excited me. And it's allowed me a little bit of an outlet, although I'm not creating anything, to be a part of other people's journeys and other creators' journeys in any way allows me kind of an outlet as well. I also just I I love and appreciate so many different forms of art. So from a collecting perspective, it's really just yeah, it's just kind of reignited a little bit of like the magic I felt when I was a kid and doing art and art classes and being really excited about it.
Which I suppose it's also how NFT, like, I mean, art connects to mental health because for you, like, if it really takes you back to those good times, somehow, I don't know, it's part of a healing process or something, like in a way to express yourself, which you need
Totally.
to find also in your adult life, and it's said that sometimes is missing, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think even after my career ended, I was just consulting for a number of different people, and I realized, although I wouldn't have acknowledged it previously, I was working for one particular client, and I was like kind of getting that creative outlet through like deck creation, which is sort of interesting. But like finding Canva and being able to like play around and create marketing campaigns and building through that mechanism, like it's obviously very different than an artist lifestyle. But I realized throughout my life there were ways in which I was sort of trying to still get that creative outlet, and I was finding it in other ways, although creating in that way as an artist
Yeah.
was never on the table.
Yeah, I have the same experience with music as well, which is why music NFTs really are something so cool to me. I would never like put like create my own music NFTs, but I really, I mean, I think in the future, record labels and in general, like the music industry is really under big threat if they don't understand what are NFTs for real and keep. At least we have a pretty, let's say, angry press in Italy and narrative around the fact that oh, NFTs are nothing, music doesn't need to worry about them, and I think it's not. I mean, it's the opposite exactly. So, yeah, I had the same experience with music. I just wanted to say I have another question, but if someone wants to come up on stage and ask a question, we do have 10 minutes or so. If you'd like, just raise your hand. I see Taco as well. If you want, we're here. Kristina, a question around the narrative in general for mental health. Like, what if you had like a magic wand, or you could change from this today till tomorrow we wake up, there's something that in the world has changed around the narrative of mental health, just one thing, what would you like to change?
Oh, Jesus, that's a big question. Um,
I
I
can tell
think,
you my answer if you want.
well,
my
I'd love to hear your answer. So yes,
my answer is I would eliminate guilt and
that's a good
feeling,
one.
guilty around everything. We have a pretty strong Catholic culture in Italy, which makes us feel guilty for virtually anything.
Hmm.
So that I would do, for example.
Well, listen, I am Irish Catholic, well, raised Irish Catholic, and I am a lesbian, so I know all about guilt from
Yeah,
the Catholic Church and what that
we're
looks
all
like.
getting started.
Yes, exactly. So yes, I think guilt is a really powerful one. I think for me, I found a lot of solace in my journey about or with the power of just like learning about my brain and learning about the things that um, were just innate to my particular brain, but also just like science and the chemistry and what happens in terms of neural pathways and how like thoughts and emotions are like built, created, and maintained over time. I think having a better understanding of just like how our bodies work, how like the science of how we exist as humans, but also like the power of our brains in that, it really gave me a lot of, I guess, like clarity and understanding that it wasn't always my responsibility. I think, and that speaks a bit to your guilt. Like, I think growing up as a kid that's, had a psychiatrist since 12 years old, there's a big feeling, or at least I had a big feeling of just like being personally responsible for not being able to do anything about my anxiety and depression and not being able to just get over it and not being able to, despite all these resources that were at my disposal, figure out a way to like make it work. And it wasn't really until I found the science behind it that I realized, I had one, I had, speaking of privilege, I had a mindfulness cognitive behavioral therapist that was government provided. So I always like to acknowledge my own privilege. But in a conversation with her, she said a lot of the things that I was consistently frustrated about related to my mental health and related to ADHD, it was as though like the way that you can look at it is like being upset about your ADHD is like being upset that you weren't born 7 feet tall. Like there's absolutely nothing that you could have done to be 7 feet tall. And there's absolutely nothing that can be done for your brain to be different. It's all about like, that doesn't mean you can't dunk if you're not 7 feet tall. And that doesn't mean that you can't live a healthy and vibrant life. If you have ADHD, it's simply about like figuring out what are the tactics, what are the resources, what are the ways that you can kind of I guess arm yourself with like the best possible case scenario to operate in the way that's going to kind of lead you to your objectives. And I think for me, understanding all those kinds of things just really helped take it out of the context where I was able to be a bit more self-compassionate, I guess I would say.
Yeah, self-compassion is also something that resonates with me quite a lot, and I think I had the same, quite a similar experience, let's say, with my therapist, that really has led me to get to know mindfulness. And right now I do meditation, which is different from mindfulness, but if it hadn't been for her, teaching me how to listen to myself and really changing the narrative I had inside of myself, I don't know if I could even bear like to meditate. I don't know, 2 minutes or so. Like it really
Totally.
is, it really is difficult. Like you're alone with yourself and your thoughts, and you need to understand that thoughts are okay. Which,
Yeah.
if your thoughts are my cat or my dog is, playing with a ball, or I need to do this, or I need to cook that. But if your thoughts are, like in my case, sometimes, not now, luckily, but have also been in the past, intrusive thoughts, like it's
Hmm.
really hard. So, I
Yeah, and then
mean,
you add the layers of guilt
yeah,
and all those
exactly.
kinds of things. It's very complicated. But yeah, I guess to sum it up, probably mindfulness would be a great thing that I would want all people to kind of have if I were to change and sort of wave one magic wand. Because I think I had so many it I oh man, like when I was going through losing my company, like I have had a psychiatrist my whole life, and yet it wasn't
Which is
until I
something pretty
found
uncommon as well,
it's
like,
unbelievably uncommon, which I
yeah.
love to talk about my privilege because of that, because I know how uncommon it is, let alone like a government provided psychiatrist. And so, yes, I think that's something that I would wish for. But mindfulness just took all the things that I had learned in having a psychiatrist all those years and just took it to an entirely different level. Um, so I think all people could benefit from it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the chemistry thing you were mentioning, it is really important because, if you understand a little bit of it, you really can change how you talk to yourself, and how you accept you need help, because you would never say, "I'm not going to, I don't know, the doctor. I don't know. I have a headache. I'm not going to the doctor because I can heal it myself." Like it's there's no point in that. So, yeah, I do feel it's another pretty important point. And actually, Happy Quokkas, the guys from Happy Quokkas, which is a Solana project around mental health, one of them said the same thing. So mindfulness, and changing the narrative around, really changing how you think about your thoughts,
Oh, am
which
I
is
getting
not
red or are
philosophical.
you
Like
red?
it's something. I can you hear me? No, I can hear you. No, can you guys hear us? No, yes, yes, no. I don't know.
I can hear you now, but I could not hear
Okay, that
you
that is that
previously.
is weird. I have no idea why. I mean, this space is glitch. So, so I don't know. In any case, yeah, no, I was saying, we were talking about mindfulness in the previous episode as well. So, it's something that really comes around, and it's a way how you change the way you think about your thoughts, which looks
What about now? Can you hear me
like a
now?
pun, but it's true. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello. Let's see. Hello, hello. Hi. Hello. No. Hello, hello. Hello. Can you guys hear me? Like any of you? I don't know what's going on. Okay, I think um Kristina is rugged. Okay. This will be a nightmare to actually edit the episode. But but yeah, I mean, I just finished my questions for Kristina. So I mean, it was very good to have her. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you're listening from the podcast, please go check Kristina out if you don't know about her. Oh, we're gonna have them. Okay, Kristina is here. Let's see if I can make her co-host to say bye. Let's see. She's asking to come up on stage. No. Somehow, this Twitter Spaces glitch.
Did we do
She's
it?
a co. Oh my god! Like why? I don't know.
Oh my
I think it was
gosh.
you because they could hear
No,
me.
I think it was for sure me. I've actually never officially been rugged. That was a moment,
Wow.
y'all.
Yeah.
We made it. We
it,
made
it
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 back.
it will be a nightmare for my editor and
I
co-founder to actually
know.
edit the space.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
No
sorry.
worries. No worries. I mean, I was just gonna ask you if we're not like shilling or anything. Just if you have before we say bye, like any type of project you're following specifically, or anything. Of course, that it's around mental health because otherwise NFT projects are just so many, and we would be here like speaking for hours and hours. So are you following somebody in particular, something interesting? You name it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly doing anything myself other than sort of advocating as best as I can for mental health in this space. I think one person that I always recommend folks to follow is Satvik Sethi. Let me just look at his actual handle here. It's at SXTVIK. He's
Yeah, I'm
a
gonna
leader.
I'm gonna I'm gonna put it on top. Can you spell the name?
Yeah, so his handle is at SXTVIK.
Yes. Oh, okay, I see him now. Satvik.
That
Okay.
fake. So he's been
Yeah.
doing a lot of amazing things in the space as well, and is kind of always like pushing the limits as to what that looks like. And I think another interesting project that I'm interested to see what it will look like. It's called Betwixt. So BETWIXT NFT. And they have some really interesting ways to kind of like gamify what does it look to like learn to earn, particularly as it relates to mental health. And the founder of that, her name is Elitza, and so they're doing some really cool things as well. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. We can also say you have. I'm actually seeing Satvik. I love it. I pinned the tweet. Love his humor. Anyways, we have a list on Twitter which is around NFTs and mental health, which for me is like a gold mine because I can lurk in the projects and see if there's someone interesting to interview. So I think let's start somehow. Are they public? I have no idea. Can they like look for it? I think they can. Like if people search for the list or something on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I can also, I don't know if I've actually ever tweeted about it. I feel like I probably
Yeah,
have.
you should
Um,
though. Like it's super interesting. I mean, for a person like me, who as many of us, I don't really have that much time, but I'm super into NFTs. If I didn't pick like a topic to be interested in the NFT space, of course, with an eye to the general happenings, I would be lost. Like, so what I'm saying to people is, if you want to get started, just decide you're interested in something you're passionate about, and so you're gonna like inquire around the NFTs in that specific area. At least in my
Yeah.
experience, it has been life-saving.
No, I think that's a great way to go about it. And I think it's something that I did as well. I did end up, I think it's my pin tweet still, but at one point in time, because of the way that I came into this space, I just realized that in my sort of IRL, I was constantly talking about and advocating for both mental health, but also diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then, you come into the space and it's so overwhelming and there's so many things to pay attention to. And I just realized like, none of those things were really reflected in my collection, and so I at that point in time just decided I wanted to be really intentional to make sure that the collections that I was picking up and the people that I was supporting, the projects that they were doing were reflective of my values in this space. So I think that's a great pointer to folks to just say, like, in the interest of trying not to get overwhelmed, I think it's really helped me both from connecting with other people in the space with like interests, whether that's related to advocating for women or mental health or diversity and inclusion. I think it's really helped me, yeah, just not be so overwhelmed and just have a little bit of a niche within that, and then you can kind of decide from there. Like it's your path to choose. You basically just need to start somewhere, and that's a great tip to allow folks to start.
Yeah, also please, like, people don't get trapped somehow in the NFT space FOMO, or in FOMO in general. Like, all these people you see have a life just like you, and if they're all the time into spaces, or shilling their work, or in discords, like, that doesn't mean you need to do the same. And you do and this is something
Yeah,
I'm really seeing lots of burnout in the NFT
already.
space.
I know.
Yeah, which reminds me somehow of the burnouts you see in the tech space, and
Hmm.
the startup world, that somehow have also been romanticized, but it's a topic for another day. But it's just, don't, like, go out, take a walk. I'm now going to walk my dog. Like, decide you're going to spend a fixed amount of time, or try to, and try to educate yourself, and yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
and I think your point is also like you can say don't FOMO, but I think the way that I like to look at it is rather like you will.
yeah,
It's a guarantee. You not only will you have a fear of missing out, you just will miss out because this space doesn't end. It doesn't close. There's no
yeah,
end of the trading day. It's happening 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's impossible
yeah,
for
which
any
is good
one
and
person.
bad, like, it's both.
It's extremely good and extremely
Yeah,
bad. And so I think what's really helped me is just acknowledging the fact that I will miss out on things, and accepting the fact that I can't humanly keep up with everything that's
yeah,
happening in this space. But that doesn't mean that I should not do any of it. It just means that the your focus of saying like pick one thing that you want to be interested in and stay there, at least that makes it a little bit more manageable when you're getting started.
yeah,
And just having self-compassion and saying like exactly what we talked about previously, like just saying it's going to happen, you will miss out, and that's okay. And
yeah,
it's like we're all experiencing it and it's okay, and just accept it.
yeah. And surely, like, if you're an artist, don't just go with the flow of what everybody else is doing. Like, do you, because I would say in the long run, which is also what Gary Vee always says, and I think Gary has led 90% of us in this space into the space, which is it's fun. I don't know. I'm seeing all these derivatives and people copying people. I mean, taking inspiration is good, but, like, you do you, like, you do your own things, you do what makes you feel good and what is your expression, and that's okay. And then if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it will sell somehow. So yeah, I'm trying to stay away from all these projects that look like other projects,
Hmm.
especially for this reason: the long run first, and then because I will get FOMO'd anyway. So yeah,
Yeah, and like I was saying previously, it's like for me, I'm not always going to get it right, and we're all going to make missteps and we're all going to make mistakes in this space. But I think what I want to be comfortable with, no matter how things end up for me in this space, is that I can look back and I can be proud of the moves that I made and the things that I learned, but also the people that I support. Like I'm not necessarily supporting everyone that I think is going to like take off and be
Yeah.
worth 100 ETH, but that doesn't mean I shouldn't support them at all. It simply means like at the end of the day, I'm buying into the person. And when I talk to artists and when I talk to project founders, like I try to reinstate to them that there's going to be, 10% of people that like your art, if that. And because art, it just is that it's an expression that doesn't always appeal to folks. So you want to be able to create something in a way that it's not just about your art, it's about your values, it's about your mission. Like if you look at Unique Gals, you look at Taco and everything that she's doing in this space, like her art may not appeal to every single person, but guess what? If I'm betting on someone, I'm totally going to bet
Yeah.
on Taco because of the way that she's moving in the space, the intentionality behind her work, the purpose, the diversity and inclusion behind it. Like determine what your values are and make sure that when you're collecting or who you're supporting or who you're engaging with in whatever spaces are reflective of those values, then it doesn't matter what happens at the end of the day. And my thesis is that I actually think we are still going to see that financial freedom and those opportunities that all of us are looking for,
Yeah.
and we're still going to feel a whole lot better about how we navigate it to get there.
Yeah. And I am gonna quote you on this. Good shit happens when you're doing good shit. So please, like, do good shit,
I'm a
and
fucking
good
poet,
shit, good
I'm
shit
a
will
poet.
happen.
It's
Yeah, I
just
mean,
I'm gonna mint that one.
yeah,
I'm gonna put it
exactly.
on
Yeah, I was
blockchain.
just gonna say, like, you could NFT the, like, this GM tweets friendly reminder. I'm gonna probably NFT some of the really nice articles that have been coming up around NFTs for people criticizing them just because I think they fear this revolution. But this is for another day. Anyways, Kristina, it was really lovely to have you. I am super honored you were our second guest for this format, and hopefully we're gonna have some great projects and people that really are trying to make a difference in the space with inclusion, mental health, and really trying to create a safe space for everybody here. And so, really, like, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you for reaching out, thank you for having me. And yeah, I think what you're doing in this space is really so necessary. You're doing good shit, so good shit's gonna
Good shit,
happen.
yeah.
And
Good shit is gonna happen.
and just because, and I also like to say to folks, like, just because I'm doing it doesn't mean I'm not afraid. Like, it just means I'm doing it afraid. And
Yeah.
so, like, it's so easy to look at folks and say, like, oh, I could never do that. And like, they have it all together and yada, yada, yada. It's like, no, I'm just up here and I'm talking because I believe in what I'm doing and I have conviction, but I'm scared as hell a lot of times. And like, sometimes the things that we're most scared about are actually the things that are going to like push us beyond anything we ever imagined for ourselves. So I feel like you're doing that, and I just really respect it. So thank you.
Yeah, I think I needed this because I'm about to move to another city and I'm still deciding if I'm gonna do it or not, which probably is gonna happen because what pushes you towards something different is always like teaching you something. So yeah.
Totally.
Thank you so much. And guys, we're gonna be here again in 3 days on Thursday with another project and also with Taco very, very soon. Thank you, Kristina. And I don't know which time is it where you are, but I feel should be around noon or something.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost 1 p.m. Eastern.
So have a nice rest of your day, and to every one of you listening, the podcast will be available in a couple of weeks on No Pasa Nada, and I'm gonna tell you when it comes out. And thank you so much again.
Okay, have a good one.
Please
Bye.
do good shit. Bye.
Bye.